There are moments in life when everything seems to fall apart. The body feels the weight of exhaustion, the mind is filled with worries, and the heart carries pain that seems to have no end. Have you ever wondered if there is something capable of bringing relief to all the anguish of the soul? The answer may lie in words written many centuries ago, but which still resonate powerfully today. There is a psalm that not only talks about hope, but also carries a promise of transformation. A song that has passed through generations, bringing peace to those facing difficult days. Anyone who has experienced the power of this psalm knows that it is not just a set of pretty phrases. It is an invitation to those who wish to leave fear, uncertainty, and pain behind. He is a reminder that no storm lasts forever, and that light always returns to illuminate the path of those who trust. Today, you will learn in depth about the meaning behind this psalm and how it can be applied to your life. But first, think for a moment. Have you ever felt like everything was lost? Have you ever experienced moments when it seemed impossible to find a way out? If your answer is yes, then this message is for you. This psalm is a call to those who wish to rise again. It speaks directly to the hearts of those who have faced long nights, deep pain, and moments of weakness. But it is also a hymn of victory for those who want to see a new dawn, for those who long for healing, renewal, and strength to continue. Before we continue, a special invitation. If this message touches your heart, leave the following sentence in the comments. I receive the renewal that this psalm brings to my life. Also share with someone who needs to hear these words today. Now, take a deep breath and prepare yourself. Let's explore each part of this psalm together and understand why it is so powerful. What sustains a person in the most difficult times? When everything around seems uncertain and fear becomes a constant companion, what can bring strength to continue? The answer to this question has accompanied humanity for centuries. Faith. It is the foundation that keeps those who have already lost almost everything standing. It is the invisible thread that connects the afflicted heart to a hope that cannot be shaken. Throughout history, faith has always been a force that drove great transformations. In moments of crisis, wars, and diseases, it was what kept humanity standing. In 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. gave a speech that changed the course of the fight for civil rights in the United States. He said, "With faith, we will be able to transform the discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood." His conviction moved crowds because faith is not just an abstract concept, but a flame capable of lighting the path of those who decide to believe in the impossible. Did you know that most people who watch our videos haven't subscribed to the channel yet? If this content is touching your heart and bringing value to your life, leave a like and subscribe. This simple gesture makes all the difference so that we can continue bringing messages of faith and transformation. Now, let's continue on this journey together. Science also looked into this topic and found something surprising. People who have faith and exercise their spirituality tend to deal better with emotional and physical challenges. In 2014, a study published by the Journal of the American Medical Association showed that patients who maintain a prayer or meditation practice face illnesses with more resilience, presenting lower levels of stress and greater emotional well-being. This brings us to an essential point. Faith has healing power. But not just in the physical sense. It also heals the tired heart, restores the tormented mind, and strengthens those who no longer believe that it is possible to start over. The psalm we are exploring today is not just a beautiful text or a simple prayer. It carries a message that was written for those who need to be renewed. David, when writing this song, was not in a moment of glory. He was not surrounded by riches or living in peaceful days. He wrote these words after facing trials, after feeling the weight of pain and uncertainty. Imagine what it meant back then to experience great loss, face persecution, and still stand firm. David found the strength he needed in God. He understood that even if a night was marked by crying, joy would come in the morning. And this message is repeated throughout the centuries. In the year 2005, After a natural disaster that devastated part of the United States, many people lost their homes, their families, and everything they had. Hurricane Katrina was one of the greatest tragedies of that period, leaving thousands homeless. In the midst of that scene of destruction, a group of survivors gathered to pray. They had lost everything, but they still had one certainty: hope could not be destroyed. Years later, many of them reported that it was faith that kept them firm, that gave them the strength to rebuild everything from scratch. And that same hope is available to all who believe. Maybe you are experiencing a moment of discouragement. Perhaps you are feeling that your faith is small, that life's difficulties have suffocated your confidence. But today, this message comes to you to remind you that faith is not something that disappears, but something that can be rekindled. If there is a battle being fought in your life, this is the time to strengthen your heart. God never promised an absence of challenges, but He promised to be on the side of those who trust in Him. Psalm 30 speaks of a God who rescues, who does not abandon, and who always brings restoration at the right time. This means that it doesn't matter what happened so far. The story does not end in suffering. There is a new dawn for those who hold fast to the promise that God is faithful. At this time, I invite you to reflect. What in your life needs to be restored? What part of your heart needs this hope? Take a deep breath. Feel these words. Let this hope invade your heart. The way we see life can completely change the way we face challenges. When a person chooses to cultivate gratitude and recognize the blessings they have already received, something extraordinary happens. The mind opens to new possibilities, and the heart strengthens in the face of difficulties. But can gratitude really transform a life? In 1928, a psychologist named Emmons conducted a study that challenged this idea. He gathered volunteers and asked them to write down 3 things they were grateful for every day. After a few weeks, the results were impressive. People who practiced gratitude demonstrated improved mood, reduced stress, and greater resilience in the face of difficulties. This discovery not only confirmed the positive impact of gratitude, but also revealed that it could be a true foundation for mental and emotional health. Now, think about your own life. How many times do you find yourself focusing only on what is missing, on the problems that have not yet been resolved, or on the pain that seems to have no end? It is natural for human beings to have this tendency, but there is something powerful about looking beyond difficulties and recognizing what has already been received. Psalm 30 is a song that reflects this perspective. David did not write these words in a moment of absolute comfort. He passed through deserts, faced enemies, and lived through times of anguish. However, he chose to praise God, recognizing that joy always returns to those who remain steadfast. This teaches us something valuable. Gratitude is not a fleeting feeling, but a daily choice. It is possible to practice gratitude even when circumstances do not seem favorable. And when this choice becomes a habit, the heart is filled with lightness, the mind finds clarity, and hope becomes stronger. And the praise? Why is he so important? Praising is more than simply singing or saying beautiful words. Praise means recognizing the greatness of God, regardless of the moment we are living. When a person decides to exalt the name of the Lord, they are affirming that their faith is not based only on circumstances, but on who God is. The Bible is full of moments when praise precedes great miracles. A striking example happened with Paul and Silas, reported in the book of Acts. They were unjustly arrested and thrown into a cold, dark cell. Instead of lamenting, they decided to praise. In the middle of the night, while they were singing worshipful songs, an earthquake shook the prison's foundations and opened the cell doors. This reveals a deep spiritual principle. Praise has the power to break chains, open paths, and bring liberation. But does this apply today? The answer is yes. There are countless reports of people who went through moments of extreme difficulty and found strength in praise. In times of war, persecution, and crisis, those who choose to worship have found peace in the midst of chaos. And science also recognizes the benefits of this practice. Studies from Duke University show that music and worship stimulate areas of the brain responsible for well-being and emotional resilience. In other words, those who cultivate moments of praise strengthen not only their faith, but also their emotional state. Therefore, an invitation is necessary. Have you recognized the blessings you have already received? Have you chosen to praise even on difficult days? Psalm 30 teaches us that God transforms mourning into joy, that what seems lost can be restored, that the night may be long, but the morning will bring new beginnings. Gratitude opens doors. Praise strengthens the soul. And he who trusts will see the Lord's faithfulness manifesting itself in his story. Life is made of cycles. There are moments of joy, but also periods of pain. No person goes through existence without facing challenges, losses, or disappointments. The big question is, how to overcome suffering without letting yourself be overcome by despair. The history of humanity shows that those who learn to transform pain into learning find a greater purpose in the midst of difficulties. Overcoming doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending they don't exist, but rather developing inner strength to move forward, even when everything seems to fall apart. Psalm 30 carries this message powerfully. He teaches that suffering may last for a night, but joy always returns at dawn. This means that no pain is permanent, and that God has the power to transform the most difficult situations into testimonies of restoration. Many people throughout history have experienced this truth. In the year 1945, at the end of the Second World War, thousands of prisoners were freed from concentration camps. Among them was Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who had lost his family and faced inhumane conditions. Instead of letting the trauma consume him, he decided to turn his pain into knowledge. Your book, In Search of Meaning, has become a reference on how to find purpose even in the darkest moments. This same lesson can be applied to anyone's life. Suffering does not need to define who we are, but it can be a springboard for spiritual growth and strengthening. Whether it's an illness, a loss, or a difficult phase, every obstacle can be seen as an invitation to mature. In many moments, God uses difficulties to teach us to depend more on Him, to develop resilience, and to become more compassionate towards those who also suffer. The Apostle Paul is a clear example of this truth. He faced arrests, persecution, and moments of extreme distress. Still, he wrote some of the most encouraging letters in the Bible. In one of his letters, he stated, "When I am weak, then I am strong." This means that when we recognize our limitations and trust in God, we find strengths we previously didn't know existed. Suffering often seems unfair. It can appear without warning, shaking structures that seemed firm. However, even in the most difficult times, there is something that never changes: God's care. Stories of overcoming show that faith is one of the main factors that help people move forward. In 2011, a tsunami devastated Japan, leaving thousands homeless. Among the survivors, there were moving accounts of people who, even after losing everything, found strength in prayer and hope for reconstruction. This is the essence of the 30 Psalms, the certainty that God transforms pain into renewal, despair into hope, and mourning into dance. If this message is making sense to you, take a second to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. This helps a lot to continue bringing content that strengthens faith and inspires so many lives. Let's spread this word of hope together. If you face a difficult time today, remember that this phase is not the end of your story. God doesn't waste any tears. He sees your pain, knows your struggles, and has already prepared a new chapter for your life. Maybe you've already thought about giving up, abandoning dreams, or believing that nothing will change. But this message comes to you to remind you that there is a greater purpose, that God is working behind the scenes, preparing something that you cannot yet see. Overcoming begins the moment you decide to trust. Trust that the storms pass. Trust that the night doesn't last forever. Trust that God is in control, even when everything seems meaningless. Now, a reflection. What pain do you want to place in God's hands today? What area of your life needs to be restored? Take a deep breath. Feel this truth invade your heart. God has already begun the work in your life. There is a moment in life when human words are not enough. When pain tightens your chest, when questions seem to have no answers, and when your heart feels overwhelmed, there is only one true refuge: the presence of God. Prayer is that path that leads us directly to Him. It doesn't matter where you are, what you've done, or what your worries are. The moment you close your eyes and decide to open your soul, a connection is formed. Since ancient times, prayer has been the bridge between the divine and the human. Psalm 30 itself teaches us about this power, as it is not only a song of gratitude, but also a sincere cry from someone who recognizes that only God can transform any situation. Science also recognizes the benefits of prayer. A study published by the Journal of Behavioral Medicine revealed that people who pray regularly have lower levels of anxiety and a greater ability to deal with moments of crisis. This happens because prayer is not only a religious practice, but also a tool for emotional and mental balance. But how to strengthen this spiritual connection? First, it is necessary to understand that prayer is not a mechanical ritual. It does not require memorized words or rehearsed phrases. What God desires is a sincere heart, willing to talk to Him truthfully. King David, author of this psalm, knew this. He did not hesitate to expose his fears, his weaknesses, and his pains before the Lord. He understood that prayer was not just a request, but a relationship. And that same privilege is available to anyone. When a son talks to his father, he doesn't need to mince words. He simply speaks, trusts, and expects to be heard. So it is with God. Prayer has the power to change circumstances, but above all, it transforms those who pray. Even when answers seem to take time, something inside the soul begins to change. Faith becomes stronger, anguish gives way to peace, and the heart finds rest. There are many reports of people who found strength in prayer in the most difficult moments of their lives. During World War II, for example, many soldiers recorded in letters that prayer was what kept them steady amidst the chaos. Even surrounded by uncertainty, they found solace in bending their knees and surrendering their fears to God. And today, that same peace is available to everyone. If prayer is not yet part of your daily life, start slowly. Take a few minutes to talk to God. It can be in the morning, before bed, or any time you feel the need. Over time, this practice will become a constant refuge. If you already have this habit, strengthen it even more. Read the 30 Psalms aloud, meditate on each word, and allow this truth to penetrate your heart. Now, a special invitation. Shall we pray together? Close your eyes, and if you wish, repeat this prayer in your heart. Lord, I stand here before you, recognizing that only in your presence do I find peace. I know there are difficult days, but I believe that your hand sustains me. May my faith be renewed, and may my connection with you strengthen. Teach me to trust, to surrender my fears, and rest in your will. If this prayer made sense to you, write in the comments. Today, I place my life in God's hands and trust in His care. God hears every word, every thought, and every desire of your heart. Prayer does not need to be perfect, just sincere. Every human being, at some point in their life, has felt that something needed to be restored. It could be a dream that got lost along the way, a broken relationship, or even a faith that weakened in the face of challenges. But there is one truth that never changes. What seems destroyed can be rebuilt. What has been broken can be restored. Restoration is not simply going back to the way things were before. It is a rebirth, an opportunity to build something even stronger. In Psalm 30, we find God's promise to those who are tired, hurting, and without hope. He turns mourning into joy, clothes those who were discouraged with joy, and brings a new beginning to those who thought all was lost. The Bible is full of restoration stories. Job, for example, lost everything he had: family, possessions, and health. His suffering was intense, but his faith remained unshakable. And at the right time, God not only returned what Job had lost, but also gave him double. This is the perfect picture of what it means to be restored. But this promise is not just for people of the past. Even today, thousands of people experience this new beginning. In 1995, a man named John Smith was in a serious car accident. Doctors said he would never walk again. However, driven by faith and unshakable determination, he began a long process of recovery. A few years later, he not only walked again, but also became a motivational speaker, helping others overcome their challenges. This teaches us something fundamental. Restoration happens when we choose not to give up, when we believe that God still has plans greater than we can imagine. And what is the purpose of this restoration? Nothing happens without a reason. Every challenge, every fall, every scar is part of a bigger story. God not only heals wounds, but also gives purpose to those who decide to move forward. Moses is an example of this. He spent years on the run, feeling unable to fulfill the mission God had given him. But when he finally accepted his calling, he became one of the greatest leaders in history, freeing an entire people from slavery. The same happens today. Many people face difficulties and don't understand why, but later realize that each pain prepared them for something greater. A doctor who has overcome a serious illness becomes more empathetic towards his patients. A person who has faced great loss develops a more compassionate heart. A mother who raised her children alone becomes an inspiration to so many others going through the same challenge. This is all part of the purpose. Maybe you're asking yourself, but what is my purpose? The answer starts with restoration. When God heals your pain, He also opens a new path. Sometimes that path involves helping other people. In other situations, it simply means living with gratitude, recognizing that each day is a new chance to make a difference. If you feel like your life needs a fresh start, know that this is God's promise to you. It not only restores, but also leads to an even greater destiny than what was lost. Now, an important question. What needs to be restored in your life? What do you want to deliver into God's hands today? The past does not define who you are. What has been broken can be restored. What seemed to have come to an end may be a new beginning. The journey we have traveled together so far has shown us something essential. No suffering is eternal, no struggle is without purpose, and no pain happens without God having a greater plan. Psalm 30 teaches us that the night may be long, but the morning always brings a new beginning. Perhaps, throughout this reflection, you felt that this message was exactly what you needed to hear. Perhaps, deep in your heart, you already knew that God wanted to speak to you, reminding you of promises that seemed forgotten and awakening a hope that had been lost along the way. And now, after everything that has been shared, there is a truth that cannot be ignored. Transformation begins with decision. The decision to trust. The decision not to give up. The decision to believe that God can restore what was broken. Looking at the history of humanity, we see countless examples of people who faced impossible challenges and came out of them even stronger. Faith has always been present as a pillar of resistance and renewal. When everything seemed lost, those who remained firm in their trust in the Lord discovered that, at the right time, help came. And today, that same promise is within your reach. If there is something that still concerns you, hand it over. If there is an area of your life that needs restoration, trust. If the weight of the past still tries to hold you back, release it. God has already prepared a new future, full of hope and fullness. The 30 Psalms are not just poetry or a set of beautiful words. He is a living reminder that storms pass, that God's grace always manifests, and that joy always returns to those who trust in Him. It doesn't matter what's left behind. What really matters is what's to come. Now, one last invitation. Write in the comments, "My story is in God's hands, and He is restoring all things." Let that be your statement of faith. May this be your decision to walk with hope, knowing that God is already preparing something extraordinary for your life. And remember, crying may last a night, but joy comes at dawn. If this video spoke to your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. This helps us continue sharing life-changing messages. And if you want to continue on this journey of faith and spiritual growth, watch the next video that is appearing on the screen now. I'm sure it will be a blessing for you. May this truth guide your steps and strengthen your faith. May God bless you abundantly. See you soon.